All right, so now that we talked about some strategies for part one of the IELTS speaking section, let's look at part two of the IELTS speaking section and let's discuss some types of techniques and skills that you should use to get a nice high score. Again, this material is coming from www.aehelp.com, so for more practice, visit us there. Just a quick review, so part two of the speaking section, you're going to get a card from the examiner, and this card will have 5-6 questions on it, which you will study for about 1 minute, get some good ideas, and then talk for about 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds. At the end, the examiner will stop you, and then that will be the end of this part, and then part 3 after. So let's talk about IELTS speaking part 2. Okay, so the example that we're using asks the question to talk about a role model. Now, it's very common for part 2 that the questions on the card will be about a person. Look at the questions, and the most important step that you need to do when you see the questions and you understand the questions is visualize it. So try to see a short video in your mind to answer the questions. It's important that for part 2, before you begin speaking, you can see in your head what you're going to talk about, just like a short 1-2 minute YouTube video. This is because you need to use a lot of words to describe deeply what you're talking about. So adjectives, adjective clauses, and so on. And if you see the information inside of your head before you start speaking, that's going to help you a lot. Because if you can see it, then the person listening to you will also be able to imagine and see this information. So again, try to see the situation that you're going to talk about. Okay? So use lots of adjectives and adjective clauses. Now, the second step that you need to do when you read the first part of the question, so in this question, the first part was describe a role model that you've had in your life. So someone you look up to, someone that you respect, someone who you follow. Again, what you need to do here is use your critical thinking. If you need a review of critical thinking, look at some of the previous videos. So you need to ask the questions what, why, how about this topic. So ask what, why, and how. So in this example, you'll hear the speaker describing their father, who's a role model. Now, here the what question is, what are we talking about? A role model, someone that we look up to, in this case, who? My father. Why? And then we need to answer this question in as much detail as possible, because he's an honest man, he's a hardworking man. And then how? How is the examples which prove this personality? He's a hardworking man, he works 10 to 12 hours every day, he's honest, he found a wallet last week, gave it back to the person who lost it, and so on. So the how question again is very important. Of course, pay attention to all the questions on the card, but if you do a good job of answering the what, why, how, it's a very good chance that you will score high and you will answer those questions anyway. So again, let's listen to the example for this speaking part 2 and pay attention to how the speaker answers the what, why, and the how questions here. For part 2,
I will ask you about a specific topic. You will have 1 to 2 minutes to talk about this topic. You will have 1 minute to prepare what you are going to say. You can make notes if you wish. Now we will begin. Here's a card with the questions. Okay, the 1 minute is up. Please begin speaking.
I've had a number of role models in my life. Perhaps my greatest role model was my father. My dad was an absolutely wonderful man who inspired me to become the person I am today. He was a very tall man and was bald from a very young age. His face was old and friendly. He worked in a factory for almost 50 years until he died last year. He had an honest job and I think he was always happy, but he wanted more for his children. His leadership, honesty, integrity, and honor are what made him a great role model. When I was 11 and our family was going through some tough times with money, my father found a wallet on the road full of cash. The wallet contained about 2 months of my dad's salary. He brought it home and immediately attempted to get in contact with the person who it belonged to. Keeping the wallet was never even a consideration for him. Years later, I asked him why. He told me that it was always wrong to take what does not belong to you, and just because our family could have benefited from the money, it was still wrong. Still, this strong morality is what I have learned. My father is still my inspiration, and that is what makes him my greatest role model.
Okay, stop. That is the end of part 2.
Okay, so the response that you heard by the speaker, this is a level 7.5 to 8.5 mark. Notice how there's a very nice coherence, so structure to the presentation. The speaker starts speaking right away. That's very important. Make sure that when the time starts, you have your first sentence ready. So have your first sentence ready when the examiner asks you to speak. Okay, now let's talk about some more detailed, more specific strategies for part 2. So in this example, the question is dealing with a person. And when the card has a question about a person, so talk about your best friend, talk about a teacher, talk about a famous person, talk about a role model, remember that there are 3 parts to describing a person. The first part to describing a person is their appearance. And appearance is basically what they look like. Are they tall? Are they short? Are they fat? Are they skinny? Do they have a round face, a long face, a narrow face, dark hair, blue eyes, and so on. So there are many ways to describe a person. And it's a very good idea to say 1 or 2 quick sentences about the way the person looks. Again, this will help the listeners to visualize and see the information that you're talking about. The second part to describing a person is, of course, their personality. So the personality is, for example, kind, honest, strict, hardworking, sincere, generous, and so on, funny, etc. Personality usually will answer the why question, so why do you remember this person, or why is this person famous, and so on. Now, a very important third part to describing people, and many students forget this, is their actions. So the actions are what we do, and of course there's an expression, actions speak louder than words. So actions support personality. For example, if you say that I like John because John is a very kind person, then you should follow with the action. For example, last week I had trouble doing my essay, so I called John and he came over to my house and helped me for 2 hours without asking for anything. So actions support personality. It's very, very important that you give the actions when you're talking about the personality. If you say that a person is hardworking, make sure to explain that they work 8 to 10 hours a day and they get a lot of jobs done. Be as specific as possible because again, this helps it to become more visual. So that's the 3 parts to describing a person. Now, of course, sometimes part 2 is not about a person, it's about, for example, an object. So with objects, we have kind of a list like this, but it's a little bit different. So with objects, first, the same as with people, you want to describe the object's appearance. So, what does this object look like? Okay? And then you can describe its function. What can this object do? So, for example, let's say the question is about technology, some kind of technology that's useful for you. And let's say you start talking about your laptop. So, the appearance of the laptop. It's small, it weighs about 1 kilogram, it easily fits into my backpack, it has a nice white color on the outside, and so on. And then the function, I use it to do my schoolwork, I also use it to chat and communicate with my friends, and sometimes when I'm relaxing, I use it to listen to music or watch movies. So that's the function. And then the next step is the importance. So why is this important for you? For example, I'm a university student, so the computer, my laptop, helps me a lot to get my work done quickly and easily. Also, I can do lots of research at school for my projects and so on. My mother bought it for me, so it reminds me of her when I use it. So the importance of the object is very useful to include. Again, these are similar to what, why, how questions, so that's why it's so important to think about the what, why, how. If it's an object or a person, it doesn't matter. So again, you might have another topic on an event. So for example, a celebration or an important meeting that you went to. So with events, again, you want to go through some important steps. So first of all, what is the event? So the type of event. So be clear about this. If it's a wedding, explain that it's a wedding, it was going for 3 days. The people who attended, so people involved. And then, of course, the purpose of the event. So, what was the reason for this event? Why did it happen? And then a 4th step for events is the activities. So, what kind of things did you do during this event? Did you play games? Did you listen to music? Did you meet new people? Did you do some dancing? Did you eat some delicious food? And so on. So make sure to go through each of these if the topic is an event. Now, sometimes it's about places. Places also have some important parts. For example, with places, you want to talk about the appearance. So what does the place look like? You want to talk about the history of the place. So when was it built or when was it established? And then you want to talk about the function of the place. So what is it used for? Who goes there? What happens there? Okay? So again, try to think about these when you're practicing for part 2, and make sure to go through these steps and use lots of adjective clauses and adjectives to create a clear picture in the listener's mind. Now, one last important step when you're looking at part 2 is always practice your timing. So make sure you know what 90 seconds really is, and always make sure to answer the last question on the card. Usually the last question is, why was this important for you, or what does it mean for you? So just some important notes here. Use adjectives, adjective clauses, which basically means be descriptive. And then practice the 90 seconds. The 90 seconds speaking at home. And always remember to answer the last question on the card. The examiners are really looking for an answer there, so make sure you don't run out of time before you answer that question. So answer the last question on the card. So again, this information came from www.aehelp.com. For a lot of practice and to download our practice tests or to join our online course, please visit us there at www.aehelp.com. Now we'll talk about part 3.